dok ne krenemo, krećemo. Ok. Dobrodošli svi. Budući da je radni jezik engleski, onda ću se odmah prebaciti na engleski. So, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming to this colloquium on PPPs in science and higher education. Just one service information quickly. When we do the Q&As, we would like for everybody who wants to ask a question to use the microphone because this is being streamed and shared online. The agenda, we have it here, and I'd like to just begin by inviting Dean Bilas as our host here to give us his opening remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Stepan. Stepan Begušić is an assistant professor here at FER, and he's going to give us an introductory presentation on public-private partnership in higher education and science. I would like to thank our co-organizer, Faculty of Law of the University of Zagreb, and also to Her Excellency, Ambassador of Republic of Ireland to Croatia, Mrs. Wendy Dorman-Smith, who really helped us a lot by putting us in contact with our colleagues in Dublin, who are also going to present today. What are we doing today? We are trying to put a little bit light on this topic, to introduce it to Croatian academic community, to Croatian business community, and also to the general community, that there are many potentials of using public-private partnership in higher education and science. Probably most of us think about infrastructure, but there is only one way of using it. We can use it for setting up new laboratories, for financing researchers, professors, but also for starting new education programs at universities. And we believe that there is a good time for us in Croatia to think about it and to start implementing it. And we are very pleased that we are going to learn something about it from our guests today, from Technology Park Ljubljana and from Technology University of Dublin. Have a nice stay here at FER and have a productive meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Dean Bilas. And also as a co-organizer of this event, the Faculty of Law of the University of Zagreb, I would like to invite Dean Kopić to also give us a brief hello.
Hello everyone, good morning dear colleagues and friends. I'm greeting you on behalf of the Faculty of Law in Zagreb, along with the Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computing. We are part of the University of Zagreb, the largest Croatian university and one of the oldest, we as Faculty of Law are one of the oldest faculties in Croatia, established in 1776. Having around 5,000 students at all levels. Our portfolio includes not only law but also public administration, public finances, social work and social policy. We have almost 30 accredited study programs, including 2 joint European study programs. Besides all challenges we have lately been faced with, we are trying to commence the construction of our new library in the city center, where all our 5 buildings are located. One of the most prominent challenges is funding such a construction project. We do not need much money, only 25 million euros. However, as probably is the case in the majority of the EU countries and beyond the EU, of course, for such a project which is of enormous importance for the Faculty of Law, we are almost completely dependent, financially dependent on the state budget. I perceive today's workshop, colloquium on public-private partnerships as an explorative information exchange, forward-looking maybe, and thought-provocative event that may equip us with the necessary information about lessons learned in other countries. It may give us additional insights and some elements for our strategic planning, strategic development plans. We as public faculties and universities are confronted with many serious challenges. To find out proper or appropriate solutions for them is urgent task, and we should explore all possible ways of developing our institutions. Public-private partnerships are among the possible solutions for such challenges and need to be thoroughly explored. Besides, we have to think about public partnerships, I will say, with probably our cities or some other public sector actors, and multiple partnerships with multiple public and private actors as well. May I add that public-private partnership is not a panacea. It will not solve all our problems with development and financing development of academic institutions. So we should not underestimate the risks and possible negative effects of cooperating with private sector actors, but anyhow, we should explore this possibility and be rational in making decisions about public-private partnerships. I would like also to thank all the panelists and speakers for sharing their knowledge and experience today with us, as well to team from Faculty of Electrical Engineering and mainly Stjepan, who is one of the main member of this organizational team, and also Professor Elizaveta Ivičević-Karas from my faculty for her organizational efforts. Well, I hope we will have a good seminar, good colloquium, good panel on public-private partnership, and that we will move forward after the panel, after the colloquium, with our planning and other activities that might add to our development in academic and research and development activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Koprić. So a quick remark about the agenda today. As things go in life, everything changed so fast in the past weeks, so we are very grateful to Domagoj Dodik, who stepped in for originally planned Professor Rojić Lugarić. We are also very thankful for Mr. Lesjak and the fact that he arrived from Ljubljana, Slovenia here today to give us his experiences, which I'm sure will be very valuable. And of course to the team, Drs. O'Donoghue and Fleming from the TU Dublin, who jumped in also almost in the very last week to share their perspective. They could not join us on such short notice, so this last presentation will be held online. We're currently streaming and sharing this through Microsoft Teams, so we'll hear from them virtually. This concludes the agenda part, and I think we can then begin with the working part of the colloquium. I have been given the task of sharing an introduction on the topic. So the title of mine part in this working program today is Building a Collaborative Future, PPPs in Science and Higher Education, with the main focus on an integrative overview of what these things are and how we can and should utilize them. Of course, since I have the lucky or unlucky task of giving the first presentation, obviously it makes sense to give just a little bit of an introduction into what PPPs are and how they are different from any sort of traditional procurement or a project partnership, right? So I'm sure we'll hear about these aspects in much more detail from the legal perspective, but just generally, these are long-term contracts between a private party and a government entity, so these often typically last more than 20 years, so very long-term, for the provision of some public infrastructure or public services, in which these partners share the rewards, responsibilities, risks. So we see these types of collaborations and contracts often in infrastructure projects like highways, public infrastructure like railroads, buildings, but also in research, higher education, education generally, and science. One of the most common examples that we often see is public infrastructure stuff like highways. Just on a brief example, how does a life cycle of such a collaboration look like? Well, firstly, the government needs to start to identify the need and start procurement for design, construction, and operation of the infrastructure. They find and identify the chosen partner, who is then tasked with designing a solution and securing funding. In this particular case, we'll see later that funding schemes may differ between different PPPs. This very partner then starts and operates construction and finishes the road. At this point, a traditional procurement project would end, but a PPP is just at the beginning of its second phase, where we have operation and maintenance of this public infrastructure for a long period, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. At that period, the government makes payments which are most likely tied to some sort of performance. So the highway needs to be available, there should be no potholes, and based on that availability, payments are regularly made to the private partner who operates and maintains the highway. And then after this long period of operation and maintenance, the infrastructure is transferred back to the public sector, who may decide to search for a new partner or renew the contract with the original partner. So this is what a life cycle of a large PPP project looks like. So within these specific phases, we can identify some key elements of PPPs. Just generally talking, financing, we have different funding models. They often include initial private investments, but they may benefit from some public grants as well. And then the payments and the contracts for maintenance are often tied to performance. We have responsibilities, where we need to have clearly defined roles for the public and private partners. The public partner is most usually tasked with regulatory compliance and policy alignment, while the private partner, especially in this highway case that we mentioned, deals with the design, construction, operations, and management of the infrastructure. Risks, as OECD defines, should be allocated to the partner who is best suited to manage them. We have financial risks at different stages of the projects. We have operational risks, quality control and maintenance risks. These, in our highway example, are tied most likely to the private partner. But we also have regulatory and public perception risks, which are most often borne by the public partner. And for bearing these risks, these partners should share some rewards. Generally, the public most likely profits from enhanced infrastructure, expertise, or technological innovation, while the private partner gets access to stable future revenue streams and access to new markets. And generally, we would expect these PPP projects to result in improved delivery and operational efficiencies of such projects. So just a brief overview of how this looks like in the past few years. So the European Investment Bank publishes a yearly market overview of PPPs by different sectors and topics and models. In the past 5 years, we see that the number of projects is somewhat varying and stable. These are the number of projects, new projects, which reached financial closure at the year. So basically, the total number of projects is constantly growing. We see that transport, the highway case that we mentioned, continually presents the most number of projects, but also the largest value. Of course, these are large, very, very expensive projects. But what's also important to notice is that education keeps being a very important aspect and a very important sector for PPPs, although their amounts are not as large as infrastructure projects, transport. So these sectors continue to be the most popular and the most lucrative for PPPs in the past 5 years. Now, our job here is not to think about highways. We're here to think about PPP in science and higher education. So to speak, we're building highways to the future. And how do we do this? Who are the partners interested in these PPPs? From the public side, we have universities, higher education institutions, research institutes, technology and science parks. From the private side, we have virtually any type of company that can benefit from scientific innovation and technology, like tech companies, biotech companies, healthcare. But we can also have any type of manufacturing or civil engineering and development companies interested in this, and of course, investment companies, banks, and venture capital. The incentives for these partners from the public side consist of course, access to funding, research funding, better resources, but also enhanced facility operation, management, development, and the technology. In some types of PPPs, we also have incentives for developing industry-relevant curricula and experience for the students related to the market labor gaps. And of course, commercialization and innovation opportunities to commercialize the scientific innovation that's being done at the public partner like research institute or a university. On the private side, we have access to academic expertise, which is always an incentive for the private partner, but also R&D support and innovation, which is closely related to the first one. We also have an incentive to develop talent and close the gaps in the labor market, which is obviously aligns with this incentive here. And of course, working with universities or reputable research centers always enhances some brand and public reputation. There are many different models in which PPPs have been implemented and could be implemented in science and higher education. While researching this topic, I basically reached almost a conclusion that every single one of these is a beast on their own, and it's somewhat hard to bring a general taxonomy to all of them and systematize. However, so there can be a large number of different models, but here we'll take a look into a few of the most popular models for implementing PPPs in science and higher education, starting with contract-based infrastructure. Virtually all higher education institutions are, for better or worse, operators of real estate. we have real estate, we need to take care of our facilities, parking space, classrooms, and this is not the core business of these institutions. So a common model is to either bring the private partner from the very beginning to build new infrastructure, or to bring the private partner in a later phase to operate and manage the facilities of the higher education institutions. So these are obviously typically very long-term agreements that often include maintenance, operational responsibilities, and then the private sector, of course, takes on the costs and risks of that part while reaping the rewards of some constant revenue streams from that operation. These are also very, very common in the USA, with some examples of PPPs lasting for more than 50 years. But also in Europe. We'll actually, I think, hear, at least for just a brief moment, from our partners from TU Dublin, where some of the infrastructure, a large part of it, has been managed or even developed through this type of cooperation. Next in line is the research consortium PPP. These research consortia are very, very different in nature from one to the other. They're generally targeted at high impact scientific challenges that may lead to some quantum leaps in technology or development, and obviously they rely on some long-term research agendas with specific practical applications. They are most commonly co-funded under large frameworks. In the EU, this is Horizon Europe. And the ultimate goal is to yield scientific innovation and technology that can be accelerated to market-ready solutions. So just as an example, the Innovative Health Initiative is an initiative to advance scientific research in healthcare. This is something that has a budget of around €1 billion, most of which, though, is funded through grants like from frameworks like Horizon Europe, but also includes a large number of private partners who are very, very interested in the initiative and take part in a smaller part of the funding, but also research and the work being done. So I've had some, the graphene flagship is perhaps even larger. I think the total budget is close to €2 billion. These do not often include specific infrastructure or tangible assets. These are large research and scientific discovery agendas. On the other hand, we have stuff like innovation hubs or science and technology parks. These are very much tangible. We're talking about co-located facilities with shared laboratories, equipments. These are designed to obviously bring together the academic research and industry needs, and often support startups and incubation. There are different models in which these can be built. They depend on the time at which the private partner is included. There's a whole number of innovation hubs and technology parks in Europe being funded or operated through the PPP models. I'm very happy to say that today we will hear about the experiences of going through the process of trying to implement a PPP within the Technology Park of Ljubljana, and maybe some issues within this process. I'd just like to maybe mention especially the recent initiative of the German Federal Ministry of Education and Research, which basically offers up to €2 million a year in funding for new research campuses which co-locate industrial and scientific partners, and basically they're fostering new such research parks popping up with decent co-funding. Next in line, we have a much more specialized version of a PPP, especially for research. We can call them all research centers and laboratories. This is somewhat different from the research consortia because they're typically much more focused and often include some kind of infrastructure with laboratories or some advanced equipment, depending on the needs of the topic. They focus on applied research and especially on the technology transfer between industry and academia. A very notable example is the T-Labs, which is basically an R&D section of the TCOM, but it is founded and co-founded and operated in partnership with TU Berlin. This is a much smaller thing with around a couple hundred employees, mostly funded by the private partner here. On the other hand, we have a much larger center, the IMEC, Inter-University Microelectronics Center, which has more than a couple of thousand employees and hundreds of partners in different capacities. And finally, workforce development and training as a PPP where the public and private partners focus on aligning and creating new academic programs which are designed to fit some industry needs and basically addressing the skill gap in the labor market. So the idea is not only the academic program and the courses, but also bring access to internships, apprenticeships, and hands-on training with the private partners. We will hear about these applications today from our guest from TU Dublin. But also, I just wanted to mention the EIT knowledge innovation communities. So these KICs, there's I think 8 or 9 of them, they're designed to basically cover specific areas in which a number of private partners are brought together. So the areas are like energy, sustainable facility management, manufacturing. The idea is to bring a number of private partners together around a specific subject and the number of universities or higher education institutions and design academic programs and curricula which can then be held at different locations in the EU, funded through their programs for these specific industrial needs. So this is a rather large-scale operation of implementing these types of partnerships. So where do we stand in all this? These were just some of the models. We'll hear much more about a few of them in the following talks. The University of Zagreb Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computing is a rather large institution. We have close to 4,000 students and almost 600 employees. We currently run around 150 competitive research projects, and most of these, a large number of funding from these projects is actually used to fund employees. So close to half of this number is funded through research projects. We are actually the most preferred partner for research, innovation, and development in Croatia. And the areas of expertise are many, but just to point out a few, they include robotics, control systems, computer vision, microelectronics, energy power systems, high-performance computing, artificial intelligence. So there's some firepower here, and we have something to give. But we also want to make a lot of this better. Some of our main incentives and strategic goals, and something that maybe I would like to also imbue in some of the discussions we will have today, includes, well, first of all, we want to strengthen the international visibility of our educational programs. We also want to improve the competitiveness of our research and basically allow this innovation to lead to some society-improving technology. We want to empower our researchers, teachers, and students to create these innovations and to make them internationally more visible, obviously, and connect them with industry and private partners. And finally, as any higher education institution. We want to advance organizational efficiency, energy independent infrastructure, and basically create a top tier work environment in this place. So on these topics, we believe there is something to be said and to be improved through structures like PPP. And hopefully, in some of the conversations we'll have today, we may identify some solutions together. And at this point, I'd like to conclude this part of the talk, and thank you all for your attention. If there are any questions, I suppose that after very broad and general introduction, there may not be some specific questions, but I hope we'll have some more discussions after the following presentations. So after this, I'd like to invite Mr. Dodig to give us his view from the legal perspective.
Aha, može. Hello everybody. I would just like to introduce myself. My name is Wendy Dodig. I'm coming from the Croatian Ministry of Health, and I'm a part-time associate at the Faculty of Law Zagreb. I'm in PPP for more than 15 years. I've done my PhD in PPP. So during this time, during these 15 years, I was involved in all PPP process in the Croatian. From when we started the first drafting the first law up to the amendment on the second, third, and so on. So I would like to, in this 20 minutes brief presentation, to introduce you what is a PPP, what is not a PPP, and what is actually the legal framework in the Republic of the Croatia. I'm very happy because the representatives of the Ireland here. Why? Because when we started the PPP first in the Republic of the Croatia 2007, when we started drafting the law, the Irish colleagues from the Ministry of Finance helped us. And helped us really a lot. So I'm very glad that the representatives of the island are also here. So at the beginning, I would just like to say that when we are talking about the PPP, we are always putting something into the box. And these initiatives here, like colokvium, I think that I'm correctly speaking the English language, forces us to put it is that we are thinking outside of the box. So one of my intention here is that we need to here expand our knowledge here in some way. Of course, when you came here, especially those who are online, have some kind of questions in the sky. For example, what is the difference between traditional infrastructure and the PPP? The PPP is usually very expensive. And the question is, from the legal point of view, how the PPP in the Croatian is regulated. Many things you hear that the PPP is very complicated. At the beginning, I would just like to say, when we are talking about the PPP in the Croatia, now I will say in Croatian language, Javno-privatno partnerstvo, many people think that it means, when we need to define it, it's javno-privatna pljačka. Or one of the PPP model is BOT. In Croatian, usually people transfer it, brzo otmi trk. It means fast take and run. All of these things that you heard in the media about that the PPP is javno-privatna pljačka or BOT is brzo otmi trk is completely wrong. So why I'm talking to this? Because many people think that the PPP is any cooperation between public and the private sector, which is completely wrong. Or many people think that the PPP is one method of financing. It's completely wrong and misunderstanding. For example, in my ministry, in the Ministry of Health, and when I was working on the PPP projects more deeply, many decision makers in the Croatia, when they introduced me to say something about the PPP said, I do not have any money in the budget, for example, then the good solution could be a PPP, completely wrong. PPP, if we want to define it in one single sentence, is, as you can see here, a procurement model for infrastructure project. Is a method of a procurement or a method of delivery. So, what is the basic characteristic or aspects of the PPP? Is a win-win situation. What does it mean? PPP is like a marriage between woman and man. And the date of the sign of the contract is something like the date when you, for example, the married with your woman or the man. So how this relationship going on, it depends on the both parties, how they will actually work on these relationships. That means in the PPP, when we sign the contract, if public and private partner didn't work in this long-term period, this cooperation will not be worked. So, how should the PPP be considered? My colleague before very easily described it. The PPP will be described as an alternative model where the main responsibility is divided. In traditional infrastructure finance, the main responsibility is on the public sector, while in the PPP, the main responsibility is divided between the public sector, who sets the regulatory issues, and the private sector, who takes care about the operational issues or the risks. So, we ask all of this, so what's the main difference between traditional finance and PPP? I will just give you one very brief and simple example. In traditional infrastructure finance, we have, for example, a public authority who wants to build a certain infrastructure. Let's say it will be a new building of this faculty. So, if public authority, it can be anybody who is the obliged of the public procurement law, wants to build a certain infrastructure, they will of course start the public procurement process, they will select the building subcontractor or operational contractor and make a payment for construction or payment for the services. Everything will be very good if our public authority have enough funds or money in their budget. If they don't, usually they will go to bank and with this money they will provide certain infrastructure. So when you can see, for example, the traditional finance from the perspective of the public sector, if we have on X time and here on the ordinary we have a public sector cost, first 3 years we have some capital expenditure and for example after we finish the building or refurbish the building we have some operational expenditure. From the previous presentation, we also heard about the risks, because in PPP everybody is speaking about the risks. And when the people is sitting here and see the risks are shared, the risks are transferred, nobody actually knows what does it mean. Now I will show you how these things are very simple. So what does it mean, public sector risk exposure? I know in the finance, for example, we have, especially in the statistics, lots of methodology how we can calculate the risks. We have a Monte Carlo simulation and so on. But now I will show you how it's simple. What does these risks mean in PPP transactions? It means how many of you heard, for example, that one procurement process for refurbishing, for example, a building was contracted for the 100 million, 1,000, so on, and we have additional 20% cost overruns. This cost overruns, for example, during the construction, represent the public sector risks exposure. How many of you, for example, heard that certain public infrastructure projects needs to be finished at the first, I don't know, of October, and then they will be finished for the 12 months, 16 months, and so on. In economy, when we have the first course, our professor says there is no free lunch. We always ask here, who will pay all of these issues? The answer is the public sector taxpayers. And we all know that if things during the construction will not going very good, the cost overruns during the operation can be increased. So this is the financial terms. So when we need to transfer it into the legal term, we said that in traditional model, all the conventional public procurement, the private sector will take not the risk, will take the obligation, because in the financial means we say the risk, in the legal, when the legal said, we said obligation. While all the other of obligations, for example, the design of the service, quality of service, force majeure, will be taken by the public sector. What we can say in the traditional infrastructure finance, the main focus is capital expenditure. The main focus is how much is the cost of the brick. Nobody cares how much these projects cost in whole life cycle period for the next, I don't know, 20, 30 years. Do you have any questions now? So, if you do not have any questions, now I will show you how the PPP models looks like. First of all, I will disappoint you. The PPP is not a magical stick. What does it mean? If the project is bad in traditional model, it will be also bad in the PPP model. Also, if the project is not viable, not profitable in one way, it will not be good in the PPP way. Why? Because the PPP is not a method of financing. The PPP is a method of procurement. So, how does it work? PPP model. First of all, according to the Croatian legislation, the land of where is the subject of the project needs to be in ownership of the public sector, not a private sector. So in the first thing, our public authority needs to give that private sector some legal basis that this potential private partner on the land which is not owned can build a certain infrastructure or operate the certain infrastructure. This legal ownership, according to the Croatian PPP law, can be concession or right to build, or it can be some contract. In detail, I will not speak. But the majority of the PPP projects in the Croatia, the legal basis is just right to build. In Croatia, we transfer it pravo građenja. When they give it to the private partner, they usually signed a contract with subcontractor A, B, C, D, and so on, and they together finance, design, build, and operate with a certain infrastructure. For example, public infrastructure. Then this private partner provide the services for the public authority, and the public authority make payments for such kind of the services. What is important that after the contract is expired, according to the Croatian PPP law, the minimum duration of the contract is 3 years, and the maximum duration is 30 years. But if the lex specialis or the special laws, for example, allows the more duration of the contracts, for example, we have a law on railways, which allow duration of the contract of the 50 years, then the contract can be the duration of the contract can be 50 years. The average duration of the contract, according to the PPP projects in the operational phases in the Croatia, is approximately 27 years. So, this slide here is one of the most important slides of whole of my presentation. Why I'm talking to this? Because this is a public sector perspective, how the PPP model actually works. We can see that from the public sector, we do not have any payment during the construction. We do not have any no-risk exposuring during the operational period. We have only payment for services received. In PPP, the payments, as you can see here, is something like rent or something like a lease fee, monthly lease fee.
And in this rent fee or lease fee, everything is included. Construction, operation, maintenance, furniture, and so on. But in PPP fee, it's not so much simple PPP as we can, as it can be. We call it fee for availability or availability payments. So what does it mean? Let's make one example. That this room here, where we are sitting, is the subject of our PPP project. So I, as a private partner, public partner, will say, I will pay every month 1,000 euros only to the private partner, only if this room will be available. So you ask me probably, what does it mean if this room will be available? For me as a public partner, 100% availability of this room means that I just want that in this room will be 23 degrees of Celsius and the lighting in the front of this table will be 500 lux. I'm not interested how the potential private partner will achieve these 23 degrees of Celsius. Maybe it will be a central heating, maybe it will be a climatization unit, or it can be a wood stove here who will put the woods and fireplace and heated this room. So what it will be, for example, if in this room will not be 23 degrees of Celsius, if it will be 20 degrees of Celsius, then the availability fee will be lower. Why is it good for a PPP? Because the public sector exactly know for the next 20 or 30 years how much the certain infrastructure costs. We can plan our budget. We who are working in the budget, we exactly know how much the certain public infrastructure will cost us for the next 20 years. I can share you the information because I was working on monitoring all the Croatian PPP projects for more than 10 years. You will show the information later. No one Croatian PPP project was achieved 100% availability. The public sector payment always was deducted on a certain level. What does it mean? It means that the private partner during all of this period will properly maintain our infrastructure, because if they will be not maintain our infrastructure properly, they will not receive 100% payments. All of you know, for example, for 40 years ago, our state, or former state, built a certain infrastructure for Universiada, university games. Can you see and can you imagine in what kind of situation actually is such kind of infrastructure? For example, swimming pools on Mladost. Many people think that all of these objects needs to be completely refurbished, completely reconstructed. Why? Because they didn't properly maintain it. PPP allows that the infrastructure is operating very well. And when we have now, back on the legal point of view, the obligation in the PPP model, the private sector in PPP cover or take not only the construction, obligation for the construction, they take the obligation for design, availability of service, quality of service. Some obligations are public or private. For example, market, the highways, for example. The demand risk for the highways will be easily transferred to the private sector. But for example, the demand risk here for this room will be usually made on the public sector. Why? Because the private sector need that this room will be heated, that it will be cleaned, that the lighting will be 500 lux in the front of this table. Either this room will be 100% full or only one people will be in this room. Some obligations are typically public sector, for example, residual value. Do you know why? In PPP, the risks, as my colleague said before, is shared. And the risks, or in legal point, obligations are shared by the parties who is best able to manage it. So who is writing the laws? Public sector. So that's the main question. Why
is the obligation of the public sector. What do you think? Can all of these risks or all obligation can be transferred to the private sector? Yes, but then it's not PPP, then it will be a privatization. So, how the PPP can be easily displayed? Very simple. Do you know all the story about the Titanic? In traditional, it's in the Croatian, in traditional model or in traditional approach, everything what we can see of this iceberg above the sea level is our capital cost. It can be easily, very easily to calculate it, easily to identify it. But the PPP approach needs to be much, much more deeper. So, everything is going very well, of course, and on these events, many people told me everything is good. The PPP, why, you may ask, why the PPP is not functioning, for example, in the Croatian, not only in the Croatian, many EU member countries, why we do not have more PPP projects. And usually the people say PPP is extremely expensive. I will tell you how much the PPP project actually costs, for example, here. How we can evaluate the project. For example, when I'm buying a flat or when I'm renting some premises, many people ask me how much is per square meter, for example, the cost per square meter. And they say, I buy it, I don't know, 2,500 euros per square meter. My colleague buy 4,000 euros per square meter. And we all know, is it something cheap or expensive? Even now, for example, when we have in a PPP project, we can also have put it some things on the common denominator. And what is the common denominator? What is the actually PPP fee per square meter? I will give you here an example of reconstruction of the county palace in Varaždin. This is a historical building. What does it mean, historical building? It means that it's old for more than 300 years old. The cost of the construction and furnishing, what does it mean furnishing? It means all the desks, tables, carpets, I don't know and so on. It's 1.3 million euros. The total closed cover area of this building is approximately 1,500 square meter. The contract period is 20 years. The contracted monthly fee per square meter on this project was 8.84 euros per square meter. For that price, the private partner needs to finance that building, reconstruction the old historical building, operate, maintenance the building, paid all utilities, režije, in this price, except the electricity and gas. This is the most high electricity, and that is for 8.84 euros per square meter. Some of you are renting for their business purposes their premises, and they know, for example, how much they rented just premises that will never be there. For example, after 20 years, these premises will be transferred to the public sector. And we all know that in the PPP fee, it's a contracted fee. But as we know, as I tell you before, the PPP depends on the availability. The public sector actually paid, for example, in 2021, not 8.84 euros per square meter, but 8.65. Why? Because there was no 100% availability of asset. In 2022, 8.7 euros, and in 2023, 8.8 euros. So, regarding to them, we have a legal framework. The main question is, does the Croatia has a legal framework, PPP framework? Yes, we have it. PPP framework, and what does it cover? We have one PPP Act, one regulation and one rule book on low-value PPP project. Our PPP Act, I know that it is a completely legal things. We amended it twice. In 2015, we introduced the small value PPP project because we have high demand of very small projects like broadband, like street lighting, energy efficiency, for example. And we think, as a regulator, that one very small project, which is capital value approximately 200,000 euros, don't need to cover or don't need to pass all the procedure, like, for example, one Zagreb airport project, which is the most popular PPP project in Croatia. And the other regulation is law on the concession and the public procurement. How does the law on PPP define the PPP in the Republic of Croatia? This is the actual, I will not read it, but according to my colleagues before, it is the long-term contractual relationship between public and private sector, which the subject is construction or reconstruction and operation and maintenance. The crucial thing is that in PPP, the both process, construction and reconstruction and maintenance, needs to be summarized in one tendering procedure. This is some key facts regarding to the PPP Act, and I would just like to mention here, because during these events, there is always misunderstanding what is the difference between PPP and concessions. So, the concession is, in general term, where the concession is when the most revenue comes from the end users. Typical, for example, highway. The most revenue of the potential private partner comes to the end users. In PPP, the most of the income of the private sector comes from the public budget. This is in general term. In Croatian PPP Act and in Croatian legal framework, we have three types of the concessions. Concession for public works, concession of public services, and concession for economic use of general or other goods. In EU perspective, usually it's not called the concessions, it's called the licenses. But when we are talking about the concessions, only the subject of the PPP project can be concession of the public works and the concession of the public services. So, when we see the definition of the PPP and the concession, the PPP is agreement between the public and private sector, and the main purpose of the project is provision of the public services, and the concession is a right acquired by a contract where the main purpose can be or either providing a public service or commercial exploitation of the goods. The common denominator is where the common denominator is public service provision. In that case, the concession model is a part of the public-private partnership. In the projects where commercial exploitation of the general or other goods, for example, this is a taxi concession, exploitation of mineral oil and so on, then the concession is completely different things than a public-private partnership. And now, does we have any PPP projects in Croatia? Yes, we have it. We have, at this moment, 17 projects in the operational phase, and total value of the contract is 350 million euros. From the last couple of years, the majority of the projects are focused on the energy efficiency, especially of energy efficiency of public lighting, because it's a very simple project. But our project is, for example, there is some pictures, only 1 minute I have of my presentation. County Palace Varaždin, we have elementary school in Bednja, in Višnjica, in Varaždin County, Graditeljska school in Varaždin, second gymnasium in Varaždin, bus terminal Osijek, for example, and the project which we are most pride, Zagreb Airport project. Instead of the conclusion, at the beginning we have something in the sky. We don't know what is a PPP, what is not the PPP, but I think that during this very short presentation of the 20 minutes, we define what is the difference between traditional and PPP finance, what's the difference between the concession, and how the PPP is regulated into Croatia. Thank you very much, and if you will have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Questions?
Maybe later. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Tomislav Sapadar from the Faculty of Electrical Engineering and Computing. I have a question about the follow-up on the availability of those premises. So you base the payments based on the availability. Is it 100%, 80%, 60%? Are there any, let's say, systematic ways of tracking this availability?
Yes, automatic software. Usually on this project, the automatic software is calculating the availability according to the contract.
Okay.
And when the I will give you one example. For example, when the certain risk event occur, for example, break a window. Usually in the PPP contract, it was identified that the private partner has a certain period of time for cover these risks, for example, 1 hour. If the private partner will cover all of these risks within 1 hour, they will not lose any kind of payment deduction. But after 1 hour, they started penalties. And all of these our projects, we have now softwares which are developed, for example, for deducting all of these payments. And every month all the issues is calculating availability payment automatically. So it's completely out of the, how to say, human involvement.
Here?
Maybe I have a question about split handball arena project. What went wrong there?
Well, first of all, the answer is very simple. The financial close of the split handball, the split arena, was that the project will be arena plus a business tower. Arena was set up and built, and the business tower will need to increase the demand for the revenue, was never built. Also, during this time, we have the situation that the public sector, I think the city of Split, said that the complete city council will be reallocated in this new business tower. So when the banks are giving you a loan, for example, and when the arena split is not finished, how to say, completely, then the project just collapsed. Yes. And what is very interesting, in that time, the mayor Kelm stepped into the mayor position, and they started reading a PPP contract. I will need to pay a PPP fee only if the project is 100 available. And what does it mean, 100 available? It means fully constructed of arena plus a business tower. I see arena, but where is the business tower? So why my past mayors or decision makers are just paying availability fee? This availability fee was very small to cover whole life cycle cost of the project, and even when they be a mayor, when they started the mayor, they just stopped paying availability fee. Why? Because the whole project didn't realize, and the whole project means arena plus business tower.
And
very simple answer.
Who was the private partner?
The private partner was a consortium of the companies. It was the major part of the consortium was constructor, and one part was Dalekovod and some institutional investor. I can't remember just right now.
Thank you. Any more? I just have one brief one. In your 17 or so projects that you mentioned, are there any, I didn't notice, any where the public partner is a university or a research center or anything in science or higher education?
Public.
Public partner, yeah.
Well, there is, regarding just university, no. We do not have such kind of experience where the university, this is the project in operational phase. This is just it's not the projects which are on the tendering phase, where the projects in their preparation, it's just in the operational phase. At this moment, we do not have it, but when we call it, when we have 16 projects, it means, for example, schools in Varaždin, we have 35 buildings of the schools, and what the county of Varaždin did, they grouped, they didn't tender one school, one project. They grouped 7 schools into the one tendering procedure, into the one project. So when we said 17 projects, it means we have much, much more infrastructure projects, more than 100, but it was grouped into the one procedure.
Fantastic. Thank you. If there are no more questions, I'd like to thank the speaker once again and invite Mr. Istok Lesjak from the Technology Park Ljubljana to give us his, I'll give you this and I'll set up the presentation.
Hello from my side. Thank you to the organizer for inviting me to share my experience, and I'm glad that Domagoj explained with the PowerPoint some risks, because I felt it on my heart and on my health what was really achieved during our experience. So, Istok Lesjak is my name. I'm coming from Ljubljana, and I was it's a director of Ljubljana Technology Park. Firstly, I was a researcher at the Jožef Stefan Institute. Now I'm a freelancer and I'm working as a consultant in this field. Today, I will try to explain, let's say, what we have achieved, a little bit the context, why the technology park was pushed, let's say, to think about the public-private partnership project, then what we have done to the certain level. The project was developed. It was before the signing the contract. Then why we refused, and then I will elaborate some conclusions based on this. The Technology Park Ljubljana is still the biggest ecosystem support for the high-tech companies, for the innovation, for the startups in the Southeast Europe. Why is the biggest, let's say? 9 buildings, more than 70,000 of square meters, more than 300 companies located as a tenants. Let's say the yearly income are about 30 startups. We are dealing with this, and we have started this in 1995 based on a 2-year project of the Technology Park at the Jožef Stefan Institute. So, services are something that defines, let's say, the good work of the Technology Park. Services are meant helping tenants with soft or advanced service support for the growth. But the characteristic of the science and technology park all over the world is also the infrastructure. The infrastructure is an added value linked with the services. It is the full service for that is a new car. Okay, so the infrastructure is also the let's say, the focus of our activities. When we started, it was in, let's say, 96. We accomplished the first phase. It was the purchasing of the building of the Institute for Electronic and Vacuum Techniques, where we hosted, let's say, first tenants, 9 tenants in 1996. And in 2001, we achieved, let's say, this first phase. The second phase started in 2005, I think, when the project for building the technology park zone was approved from the government. And in 2007, let's say, the Bertha zone was finished. Then in 2010, we tried to start the third phase, and we find out that our solution or our approach should be the public-private partnership project. Okay, our let's say activity was somehow recognized with several awards, not just for the activities done in Ljubljana, but also for spreading our best practices. Today, in 2018, I was retired, and today I'm working as a consultant, as said, for the European project. Mainly, I'm helping to develop science and technology park in, let's say it was in Luxembourg, Niš, Podgorica, Prizren, and several. So, the context. We finished the second phase, I said, in 2007, and we filled practically 90% of the buildings with the companies. But we still have one building, a place for one building at this location. And this was bordering us. Today, this building is finished, okay? And it let's say, fills the idea of having a small village. The technology park zone, the infrastructure from the technology park was aimed to build a small village. Let's say that you will have at the same zone everything what goes in the tertiary sector also. No? So the kindergarten, the pharmacy, the healthcare, the bank, the post office, and everything is, also the hotel is in the vicinity, the market is also let's say 500 meters away. But at that time, the land was not all available. So the 90% of the land for building the house was already at our side. When we finished the second phase, all the connections was already finished, let's say. The heating system, the sewage, the water, the rainwater drain, the road underground, and on the ground level was already finished. And as I said, 90% of the land, and this was the capital that was from the Technology Park Ljubljana, not used. It was a dead capital there. And on the market, there was a need. You see the discussion we had with the post office, with one company who will be, and also our own plans were, we needed a restaurant, we needed an incubator, a co-working space that was not in the rest of our building. So, why we started this? Our idea was to share the risk and resources, as Domagoj said. So, if you are looking at the picture of the company, we were developing, let's say, the first phase in 2001, and it was with a bank loan. The second phase was also with a bank loan. Okay, it was also the land from the municipalities, the structural funds, but at the end, our company was very much in debt at the end of 2010. And it was practically impossible to start build with a bank loan or some other schemes that was available at that time. And so we started the idea with public and private partnership. There are other things, let's say, that are also important when you are thinking of this. I think that is the faster development is something than expertise and the solution. So the partner who will help us, it is state-of-the-art technologies. If they will have to maintain the building, they will install the new materials, the most, let's say, the right one to cut down the maintenance cost. Okay, this is the difference. And so, operational efficiency, accountability, and we start, let's say, this project. We write down the investment project with everything on a standard that is also good for the bank. We start the discussion with companies. We were looking for the expertise of the building companies that in our region, let's say, who has already this expertise in this field. We obtained actually an offer from the Strabag company for this. We were asking the letter and we said, okay, we will do in BOT, so build, operate, and transfer system that will be or for the idea. No? And we were already in these preparation steps. We were in discussion for the, let's say, for the contract. Who will do the volume of the project? What is the responsibility for the partner? What is our responsibility? And we said already, okay, we will go with this, what it is already, let's say, 30 years. And so, because at that time, the Strabag, or this builder, or real estate developer, was in schools, in hospital, at the European level, not in Slovenia. The gym, the kindergarten was the project available in Slovenia. So, when you are looking at this, some problems or some pitfalls, it's good that you are aware. Complexity of agreements, okay, for sure. So we were traveling around to find a reliable partner who will help us to write down the contract, or at least to assist us to write down the contract with the Strabag company. And we come across with the center that was in Sveučilišta Zagrebu at that time. So we started also the discussion, yes, we were a company, we were not real estate, we were not in PPP expert and so on. So also the financial risk, regulatory clearance, and at the end also the exit strategy is something that should be defined. No. But when we, so the problem is also management style. No? What was in our part and what was on the partner side. And when we went for the approval to the municipality, which was our majority shareholder, 63% at that time, the mayor said, we will do it with our own resources. We will do it independently. Municipality will help you. So, and you know the picture of the company? So this was, and okay, there was no solution, it was just a challenge in front of us. And Mayor said, okay, we will help you, and we started a discussion, let's say, for making a kindergarten, let's say, in the first floor of this building. No? So Mayor also offered the assistance in the discussion with the bank. So we went to the bank with a letter that municipality will buy the first floor, and then municipality will help us, let's say, to cover the cost. Mainly, the municipality had the idea to develop also a special part underground for the town museum depot, and this was in together. And today we are having this. So the building with a nice, let's say, children playground in the back, and everything was there. The problem was that all the risks were on our team, on me, and on the company. Okay, this was really a problem, and it is like Domago explained. So the selection procedure for the real estate developer or construction company was a public. And the selected company, we already knew that they were at the edge. So they went in bankruptcy before we finished the project. So we had to pay the penalty for the buyer of the last floor. And everything was, let's say, at the risk of the company. And okay, I said it was challenged, we were happy. The building is there, it's functional. It hosts, let's say, the restaurant, the public health ambulanta, the pharmacy, the hairdresser, the kindergarten, and then 2 floors of office space, the toboggan, our co-working space, the part of the incubator and everything. So also we fulfilled our vision, let's say, for a village in small at the place. The problem is that the main idea, sharing the risks, was not achieved. So, for the conclusion, what can we say? The public and private partnership model works, for sure, but it is to work on a preparation phase, let's say, more than it is usual for any other contract. So, and to think about everything that is involved. So the things are live. Let's say the municipality is developing other things. Maybe at that time it was not expertise at such a high level. But today they are using, no problem. So mainly the Strabag has still the department for BOT or public procurement. So in 2016, it was of our some partners analyzed, let's say, in our, let's say, today the majority of the projects that are done in Slovenia in this are energy. So because the alternative sources of the energy is strongly supported and subsidized from our government. We are, let's say, working on energetic communities. Municipalities are doing this, so installing everything. That's all from my side. Thank you very much for hosting me.
Keep that one in case anybody has questions.
Sure. I will be glad.
Who was the mayor?
Yes. Jankovic was the city mayor. He's still. So the differences between management styles and strategies is obvious. I will do everything at my own, no problem.
Any questions for Mr. Lasiak? Because you could say in a way that you use the whole PPP procedure to end up pressuring the city into helping you achieve it.
Yeah, it was. But if you're asking me which direction, what I should put, let's say, where I should go, I don't know. Probably with this public project with Strabag, we will not suffer so much. Okay. Why? Because they will have to maintain the building for 30 years, no? Okay? So, and when the construction company went in bankruptcy, so we had to pay the penalties to those that were already signed the contract for moving. Okay? So all our profit went to the covering the penalties. No? So it was, for us, it was, yeah, 0, maybe minus, but on the other way, probably if you're pick a reliable partner, okay, it is, the most important is how this partner is reliable, okay, and looking at the win-win situation. Because for the 30 years, both the people on both sides will change. There are re-election, retirements, I don't know, whatever can happen. So the contract is really something that should be studied in advance in a good manner and looking at this good management. No? Okay.
I think these are some very important lessons here, and I think there's much more to talk about here. I think we'll have these discussions in our break.
I think that risk assessment is very important, is of crucial importance, as your example shows. All sorts of risks, not just, I would say, usually mentioned risks. You mentioned some risk, Stepan mentioned some, but you mentioned this risk of your technological center in regard to municipality. Also municipality, other public partner was not, let's say, fully reliable, or
let's say the park was established by 3 research institutes, 3 eminent companies, and 1 public was technology organized at that time. So the good things out of this is also that we have a management of Technology Park Ljubljana, always public-private partnership. So also for our salaries, for our behavior on the market and everything. So the private one has bring the expertise in this field, no? And also the salaries were not as a public servant, but as a manager of a bigger institution. And thank you for that. Okay. The most important part, let's say, at this, it was second phase finished, filled up to 90%. So the expertise that we have shown at that time, and having municipality at our back, and so the bank said, yes, we will give you the loan. No? Okay. So if we will have a partner, a Strabag, they are also practically the same things, no? And when we finished, let's say, the investment project, here we studied everything, let's say, these are all in. Let's say the project is, let's say, the cash flow, the maintenance over several years, and all these things is everything inside, no? So the decision makers at the bank first said no, because the exposure was not in favor.
If I can just make one more comment, the crucial thing in PPP transaction is the demand risk. Yeah. So we always, when we have such kind of these roundtable discussions, has some perspective from the public sector. Or academia, but when we put it on the another side and ask what is the perspective of the private sector, first of all, the private sector is looking for, honestly speaking, a profit, or in financial terms, we said internal rate of return. So if I'm a private sector, if I have, for example, 1 million euros, I can put my money in the bank, and I will receive the interest of, I don't know, 0.5 or at least 1%. And what is the interest? The interest is nothing else than a price of the money. Like everything, like every object has some kind of price. This Microsoft, I don't know, my watch or so. The money has also a price. And the price of the money is the interest rate. So if the private sector say, I can put my money, for example, in the bank, and my price of this money will be 1%, 0.15%, or I can invest in PPP project, but then I ask that this interest rate in economy or in finance, we call it internal rate of return, I ask at least 12%, for example. This is a private sector perspective. The second thing is very good. Istok explained the demand risk. So what does it mean? Demands in the it means in fulfilling these the premises.
Absolutely.
It covers the full demand. In technology view, when we have, for example, a public sector payment, when the private sector see that there is a budget payment and availability payment, and in this payment they calculate it, they profit, they will be very, very interesting, regardless what kind of the public service provided will be the subject of the PPP project. Sorry, this is just one comment.
But profit is not the only motivator, as I can see. Also, you can have a good or well-educated people, young people. You can hire them, and then you will have higher profit. That's another cycle, type of cycle, which is not so direct.
Yes, that is the perspective of the public sector. For example, the public sector, when they enter in the project, for example, universities say they have well-educated people and so on. For example, in Varaždin, when they started the PPP projects, these 30 schools, for example, here, they just want to have their first strategic goal is to have one shift jednosmjenska nastava, one shift class, for example, and then 30% increase in higher education people. They have much broadened, and in that way I'm completely agreed with the dean.
For the private side, let's say in our field of expertise, let's say the real estate developers, they are also investing in the period when they don't have any construction work. They are building inside the technology park. This was the case of the Heidelberg, let's say. And the Manchester Science Park was bought by one real estate developer. And so in the board, there are still universities and these higher research institutes that initially started the idea of a science park. But now the real estate developer owns the science park, and the science park is a kind of institution to develop the Manchester city, okay? To renew, let's say, the old part. They have, let's say, completely moved one district for the ophthalmology, okay? And built there the zone of the park, inviting all, whatever it is for the ophthalmology, let's say, the producers of the lens, the producers of the lasers, the maintenance companies, everything is there in that zone, and they created a destination. So now they have expertise in this field, but it was really, it is a kind of public-private partnership still. It's for the management, but the interest of such kind is also in the period where I don't have a project. I have a machinery behind. I have people to pay. I will build something that will fulfill the needs, let's say, and usually in these technology parks, created as a destination, is a need for the space. So it's not only the profit, but it's also the manner of surviving, okay?
Sure.
Thank
okay,
you.
I think we'll have much more discussions about this in the break. Thank you once again, Mr. Lesik, for your presentation. And at this moment, I'd like to invite our virtual presenters, Drs. O'Donoghue and Fleming. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Greetings
Can you hear us?
from, yes, indeed we can. Greetings from TU Dublin.
Hello, hello. Can you please share your slides?
Adrienne, we can't hear you at the moment.
Yeah, Dr. Fleming, you're muted. for some reason. No?
You can hear me now, Maria?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Do you want to share your screen? Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
So good day, everybody. It's good morning here. I know it's good afternoon.
You're awfully. I'm sorry. You're awfully quiet.
And my name is Adrian. I'm a senior lecturer in Technological University Dublin. Delighted to be joined by my colleague Maureen O'Donoghue. And so I'll let Maureen do a quick title check there.
I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, everybody. Like Adrienne has said, it's lovely to be with you virtually. My name is Miriam O'Donoghue. I'm Head of Strategic Relationships Development at TU Dublin, and we have a short presentation for you, a little bit of introduction to who TU Dublin is and what we do and how we're constructed. And then I'm going to go through a number of examples of our view on PPPs, public-private partnerships.
In terms of the presentation, it's broken into two, so as Maureen said.
I'm sorry, Dr. Fleming, can you hear me?
So looking at the whole area of research and education in universities through
she cannot.
A brief introduction to TU Dublin, so Technological University Dublin. In terms of TU Dublin, it's Ireland's first and largest technological university, and it's very much focused at career focused. We'll talk a little bit more about that in the slide. The nature of discipline areas, we cover the breadth, science, the arts, business, engineering, and technology. And we're very much looking towards creating the leadership of tomorrow. Miriam and I have been within TU Dublin and its predecessors for quite a long period of time. And over that time, we've definitely seen a change in the landscape in Irish higher education. So it's evolved from, and you can see here in terms of back to 2018 and up to indeed the present day, you can see that the landscape has changed quite significantly. A situation where we had very much of the traditional universities, 7 universities, quite a number of them based in the Dublin region, as you can see there. And then we had 14 institutes of technology. The Technological University Act of 2018 really transformed the landscape in terms of the sector. And we saw a situation went from 7 universities pre-2019, post-2019 went to 13 in total. And indeed, if you think of during that time, we've come through the pandemic, time. So it was quite, I suppose, quite a busy time for all, and certainly within higher education in Ireland, it was quite transformational. So you can see 2019, we now 5 technological universities and the regional line. So TU Dublin is based in the Dublin region, and we have one on the Atlantic coast of ATU, down the southeast, one down in the southwest, and indeed the one in the southwest kind of dominates into the Midlands as well. There's also the Royal College of Surgeons of Ireland, the University of Medical and Health Sciences and private. And alongside the universities, still sit 2 institutes of So what are the distinguishing features of the Technological University in comparison, I suppose, aspects within the traditional university? We are very much focused towards career-focused higher education. And with that in mind, we very much embrace working with industry and enterprise in both I suppose, our undergraduate, postgraduate programs, and also in the area of research and innovation. We would see over the next 10 years to actually double the research activity that goes on within the university. And in terms of the workforce development, so that we understand our role looking at access into education and the progression of students to enable them to work in many aspects of the various industries that we feed. So in terms of the fields of learning, they're very much related to the labour market in science, engineering, technology and work-based learning. And we are very proud of the fact that we have quite a significant cohort of full-time students, but also part-time students. And the work-based learning is not just our part-time students, but also our apprenticeship group as well. So creating the Technological University Dublin, it was very much the amalgamation and the merger of three institutions, well-established institutions, and indeed some more established than others. DIT, which is in the middle there, Dublin Institute of Technology, the history dates back to 1887. IT Tallaght, the Institute of Technology Tallaght, was 1992, and IT Blanchardstown 1999. So that's a bit younger, although those of us who are working in it probably don't feel that we're that young at all. So creating TU Dublin, you can see very much dominant on the landscape, the physical landscape of Dublin. There's a number of in the city, we have city centre focus, Great Gorman, but we have other locations in the city as well. And for those of you who know Dublin, you can see Motorway M50 around the outskirts of Dublin, and the Tallaght campus and the Blanchardstown campus sit on the M50, so well positioned. We have 5 faculties established: engineering, business, arts and humanities, science and health, computing, data. And indeed, I suppose in terms of my own role, I sit very much in the Faculty of Science and Health. I'm in the School of Chemical and Biopharmaceutical Sciences, which has a very big reach out into industry. But you can see that even through the names of the various schools, real focus on ensuring that we're working with industry and enterprise. Gives you some insight into, I suppose, what we look like as an organisation. As we sit over 3 campuses with a significant number of graduates per year, and indeed graduation on every single day in the building that you can see left-hand corner there. So it's a really exciting week, graduation week. And we've excess of 29,000 students, so quite a significant contribution into the workforce subsequently. And you can see in terms of the percentages and the different fields of study and how they're divided up. So quite definitely business, engineering, and science, and certainly significant to the ICT as well. As I mentioned already, research is really important for us. And you will see there that there's significant research funding brought in, and certainly publications are a big reference point. So nationally, we are the largest provider in the following fields, and you can see how we sit in terms of the percentages. And so in terms of as a technological university, we're largest in Ireland. And sitting very dominantly, not just on the regional scale, national scale, but indeed from an international footing as well, and with significant reach out in based on different partnerships with other universities abroad. In terms of the framework for educational qualifications in Ireland, you can see that this is the National Framework Qualification, which spans all of different levels of higher education and below. In terms of a student leaving school, they would leave Leaving Cert, so that would be a level 5 program. And then we offer programs at level 6 through to and including level 10, which is up to your PhD level. So TU Dublin offers the education at all those levels, and indeed what we try and really I feel really succeed in is allowing students the opportunity to reach the highest attainment that they can reach, but also that they can leave and subsequently return to get higher qualifications. And so that's something that over the years has been a very positive aspect. What is TU Dublin's mission? Well, TU Dublin's mission is very much the pursuit of excellence and student-centred learning. We're very supportive of enterprise, and as a result, what we really want to create, I suppose, and we want to develop our students into looking at things on very much a global level. So we want to make them into very much a global citizen, being, growing in terms of their enterprise skills and also being socially responsible. We see that it's extremely important. TU Dublin's mission is very much the pursuit of practice-led, impact-focused research, very much embedding our research in what ultimately are the issues that present in our community, society, and economy, and that's across the various disciplines I've listed already. TU Dublin's mission is the pursuit of the co-creation of teaching, learning, and research. And I know Miriam's going to give you a couple of examples in a while, but this is very much about a collaboration and open engagement with our students, with the university, with our partners in industry, the different professions, the different professional bodies is very important for us, and also civil society. And over the years, we would see that a lot of the academic staff that are employed in university have come from industry, so bringing their experiences. And that is very important for us in terms of looking at keeping our programs relevant, current, and indeed ensuring that our students are armed with the same. So in terms of some of the other areas to look at, and I've mentioned the fact that we have quite a significant international reach as well, so there's certainly different aspects associated with that in terms of exchanges. And embedded in quite a significant number of our programs will be industry internships. And this gives our students a true opportunity to work in a real-life environment and to develop their skills further as they begin to navigate their journey on their careers. I'm going to hand you over to Miriam now, just to have a look at the strategy and some examples. Thanks, Miriam.
Can you move on the slide, Adrienne, please? Because I can't take control here. That's it. Thank you very much indeed. So, I suppose part of why we're here today is to speak with you in and around the area of public-private partnerships. So the partnerships are embedded into our strategy. So we have 3 pillars in the strategy in TU Dublin. We have people, planet, and partnerships. And through these 3 pillars of our strategy, we partner not just with other universities, with the government in Ireland, but also with a private industry and private sector education bodies to fulfill this as our particular mission. Can you move on, please? So today we'd like to just give you our take, I suppose, on the idea of the universities as education and research partners for industry. The traditional idea of education research and third-level educators is changing. We live in a very fast-paced world, and therefore we need to keep up to date with technology. We need new equipment, we need new software, we need new items into the university such that we can educate the students, both undergraduates and postgraduates, to take their place within the industries that we serve. So we see education as a combination of knowledge and skills. And what we provide to our industry partners then is the helping them to fulfill the skills gaps and also to work with them to investigate issues which affect individual companies and sectors of the economy as a whole. So if one improves, they will all improve. And this is easier done through university PPPs than it is than each one working on these problems independently. Next slide, please. What we offer to our partners to fill the skills gap at the rapid pace of technology change, we hope to keep up with that, but then we help them with regard to improving the skill level in the current workforce, so we partner with them to do that. We education train emerging workforce, so with our undergraduates that they are fit for practice and that they are able to start with the current technologies that are in industry. And then we hopefully help them through our postgraduate masters and PhD programs to retain their skilled workforce. Because one of the things within the Irish economy is that there is a fast turnover of individuals. So all of these are really important for our partners in industry to help them to sustain where they are with regard to their economic future in the country. Next slide, please. So advantages that our partners find, well, we can provide obviously a variety of courses. We're cost effective as distinct from private trainers and educators. We're accessible. We will work out of hours with them, which they like, at a pace that suits their students. So through our micro-credentials and through other schemes that are currently running, we don't have to get one full program through. They can do it at a pace that suits them. It's assessed and it's accredited, so it has a mark of quality for the industry partners. And just wanted to mention apprenticeships. So we work with many other private partners and with other universities in Ireland to provide apprenticeships, not just the traditional apprenticeships, electricians, plumbers, carpenters, etc., but our new phase of apprenticeships that looks at things like laboratory analysts, laboratory technicians, culinary arts graduates, chefs, chef de partie. So we work in multiple ways with both other public bodies and private industry to bring all of that together, and apprenticeships are a good example of that. Next slide, please. So as we've been talking today, and we've been listening intently to your presentations, and thank you so much for that, I'd like to start with a couple of examples. And what we would like to do is and this is just a couple of examples which shows to the infrastructure public-private partnerships that TU Dublin has become involved in. We can see in the pictures there, we're just finishing on our Tala campus, the CAET, Culinary Arts and Engineering Technology PPP building, which is one of the PPP buildings which we have been involved in over the last number of years. One on a previous slide was the Sports Science and Health building, also PPP. And there to the right, the launch of the West Quad in Grangegorman. Grangegorman is one of our largest campuses, and those buildings have been built by way of public-private partnership. So they're through the Grangegorman Development Agency, who are the land, what shall I say, they look after the lands of Grangegorman. We have launched just recently a call for private industry who wishes to be involved in the development and building of the new West Quad, which will host our Faculty of Business. Next slide, please. Other examples, so I've mentioned there public-private partnerships obviously to build buildings for us. We're also involved through some donations that have been made to the university. We're currently designing a design and construct education facility through the donations, one of which would be Cairn Homes. And the idea behind that particular facility is to look at refurbishment of buildings. So for companies to gift us with equipment and materials such that we can then help them train the people that will be working on their particular building sites. Build and construct is just an example of one of those projects. Another example through another partnership that we have with Intel, Trailblazer. The premise of Trailblazer is a project which is funded through donation with our partners, which looks at encouraging female entrepreneurs to come into the workforce and to stay within the workforce. Next slide, please. Another example, which is with another of our industry partners, a really good, what shall I say, public-private partnership. It's working with Workday, who are a partner with TU Dublin, to advance research and foster innovation. So they are working with us in the area of our research and innovation, the societal impact of different aspects, how sustainability can be done, and indeed, as part of that, they have funded the chair of Technology and Society, the research chair of Technology and Society at TU Dublin. Next slide, please. So we also have a lot of linkages with things like pharma companies. Pharmaceutical sector is quite large in Ireland. So we provide courses, bespoke courses for them through small group learning, also case-based learning. We run conferences that bring together industry, the regulators, and education providers so that we can all come together to look at how we best partner together. Consultancy projects, we work with them to help them if they need to house some of their projects, or indeed if they need to look at particular types of equipment. We are involved in industry fora for example, ISPE, and we have a number of national centres which reside within the university. Next slide, please. So examples of national centres, I'm going to give you two. One of them is mentioned here. So it is the National Optometry Centre, which is based in TU Dublin Grange Gorman campus, and it has a number of donors of equipment and indeed technology, which our students work with. And then obviously when they go out to work as professional optometrists, they are up to date with the most modern technology. And these are done through partnering with us and through the donations of equipment. The other example that I've alluded to there is partnering with AWS and some of the hospitals to look at innovative ways that we can tackle issues that are occurring through technology. So yearly we run a hackathon with the local hospitals and indeed supported by AWS in the communities to bring our students together on real world problems and look to see if there are solutions that can help the hospital sector, but it's done in conjunction with an industry partner that we have. Again, an example of a public-private partnership for the greater good. Next slide, please. This is an example. So we also host the National Pharmaceutical Education Centre, and this gives you a feel for the type of equipment which we have within that centre. It's a little bit different to that which you might find in the optometry centre. Obviously, this is heavy industrial equipment. The majority of this was donated to TU Dublin as part of an initiative to support the education and training of a skilled workforce to work in biotech, in the move from API, active pharmaceutical ingredient manufacture, over to biotechnology and biopharmaceuticals, needed to train people and educate people so that they could move. And they, what shall I say, the suppliers of the equipment donated all of their equipment to us such that we could then have a facility where we could train and educate. And year on year, we get updates and donations of equipment and software that runs this particular plant. And we have put many pharmaceutical companies through their employees through this particular plant, and then they take their skills and they use them back at base. So it's a real world training for them on equipment that they will see in their own companies or in their own factory settings. Next slide, please. And I think that. So just in conclusion then, we work with public-private partners in that public-private partnership space. We do the infrastructure projects, which we have been discussing this morning, but we also work with them to co-create in that education and research space. So we're working on issues of upskilling our workforce and in looking at research projects that affect industry and the wider community. So cross-community knowledge sharing from the educator to consultants to industry to regulators to help support our industry partners and indeed the economy as a whole. And I think that's probably the last slide. The last one is to say thank you for listening, and I hope you found that useful.
Okay, you can hear us now, I guess. Are we muted or we need to take some time? Dr. O'Donoghue, Dr. Fleming? Everybody in the room can hear me? You can probably see me somewhere. Where's the camera? But you can't hear me, right?
We find it very difficult to hear you. I'm sorry.
Okay. We have our best people working on it.
Okay, I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me now. Great. Yeah, the sound goes through the other computer. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation. I think it contained a lot of super interesting things. I'd like to give the floor to anybody who wants to maybe ask a question. I have one, if that's okay. Regarding I think you mentioned the company named Workday, financing a chair. Can you hear me better now? A company called Workday financing a chair. Again.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay. Yeah, but the sound is going through the other computer. Yes. Okay. Then maybe at this point, we can maybe transfer all the questions in writing as a follow-up to this thing.
Absolutely, yes. We'd be happy to answer any
I
questions.
think it'd be much easier. I think there's going to be a lot of questions. So thank you once again for stepping in and for this wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think this concludes our working part of the day. I'd like to thank you all for being here till the very end. I think we have a lot of things to discuss in our lunch, so I invite you all to the gallery now for refreshments and some hangout time. Thank you.
Mm.